Welcome to One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. Today is exciting. I should introduce myself. I'm Dr. Wayne Pernell, Dr. P, the Outfluencer and your powerful presence mentor. Today is exciting. I've got with me Jane Hogan. She is a civil engineer turned functional medicine certified health coach. I'm reading. And So I wanted to keep reading. Here we go. She had crippling joint pain from rheumatoid arthritis. It was a crippling autoimmune disease that entered her life in 2016. So 4 years ago, she turned her life around. And what she began doing was studying functional medicine. Today she has she traded in her hard hat as a civil engineer, and she began to explore functional medicine. She now empowers other people to intentionally design their own unique wellness plan, transform their health, and live an empowered life. Jane, thanks for being on One Sharp Sword.
Dr. P, I'm so happy to be here. Just
Yeah,
thrilled.
I am thrilled as well. It's quite a story, and it's only 4 years old. What your bounce, right? Your what I call the bounce of things got really bad, and so it's just been a short time since you turned your life around. Talk about what happened. I mean, you had a full life. You were working as a civil engineer, so you have a mindset that allows you to sort of deconstruct. You work backwards sometimes from seeing a finished product and figuring out how to get there. Talk about what happened for you that you knew something was wrong that you needed to fix.
Well, it came on really suddenly. I had just turned 50 and had come through a really stressful year. So stress plays a part in this illness. And I just very quickly, within about 3 months, I went from being totally normal and fine to hardly being able to walk. So
Right.
it was quite drastic. And so it was pretty clear there was something wrong. The solution wasn't quite so clear because I was pretty sure, even before being officially diagnosed, that it was rheumatoid arthritis. So of course, we all get on and talk to Dr. Google, or consult Dr. Google. He does a lot of talking. He doesn't listen that well.
Right.
So I knew that the solutions were not real solutions. They were, the medicines were uh, just masking symptoms, not really dealing with the root cause. And they had a lot of harsh side effects. And I don't know, there was something in my upbringing that I think my parents are always sort of, leaning towards trying to go a natural route, even though they didn't always, but that was kind of in me. But I fell at that rock bottom in 2016 when this happened. I sort of felt very powerless, because you feel powerless. There's nothing you can do, and you're consulting the experts, and there's really no solutions. And I just thought, I can't be meant for this. I can't be meant for this.
Mm.
I was looking at our life and our future and thinking it was going to be. We had retirement coming up, and our kids, we had an empty nest and lots to look forward to. You work your whole life planning for all the freedom years, and it just looked like it wasn't going to happen because, well, I could hardly walk. So that was going to really make it seem a lot different. So I think I just decided I have to try to do something, and the solution isn't out there, it's in me. And I knew that this had come on through stress. So I knew stress was part of it, and that stress was something I could deal with and try, manage. Anyway, I just started researching. So then I started researching, natural ways to heal. And it just opened up a whole new world for me. And it opened up functional medicine. I love functional medicine because it deals with the root causes of illness rather than dealing with symptoms. So I really like this example of if you're walking around with a rock in your shoe, you could take a painkiller and probably it wouldn't hurt as much. You could, put a bunch of padding and stuffing around it and it wouldn't hurt so much. But, doesn't it make more sense to just take the rock out? So
Right.
yeah, functional medicine
Nice.
is a great. It's just a great tool. I mean, for chronic illness, it works really well. So that kind of it just a new decision, Wayne. That's what it came down to: making a decision. And then once you make a decision, then I just was going to do absolutely everything in my power to follow through on it. It's kind of like either I get that result, or I just keep trying until I get that result. There's
Wow, good one. This is great. That's fantastic. I want to call attention to a couple of the things you said. First of all, most people would go, "Oh, this is how it's typically treated. I guess I'll follow that typical path." And for you, that wasn't good enough. For you, what you said was, I I don't want to treat the symptom. There has to be something more. There has to be something more. And you kept going, right? So
Mhm.
that's not typical. And I think that really does tie to one sharp sword, right? Cutting through to what matters most means cutting out what doesn't matter. And what you said is masking a symptom or treating symptoms, that that's not my path. And you knew there was something. And as debilitating as RA is, it knocked you out, right? And you were like, there must be a way out of this.
Mhm.
I also want to call attention to, once you make a decision, basically, in Choosing Your Power, my first book, I talk about this fortune cookie I got, and it says decisions terminate panic. And it's like, I've never seen that fortune cookie
Oh,
before. I hadn't seen it after. It's the only one. And it was
love
something
it.
I taped to my computer all through grad school years and years ago. And that's exactly what you've done. You said, look, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to do this thing. And if I don't get the result, I'm going to make another decision and make another decision. Really, really important. I think that's part of the cutting through to what matters most process.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that the decision to keep sticking with it no matter what,
Nice.
no matter what. It didn't matter, it wasn't a clear path. It's not like I started, making some changes and it's like, woo, the pain went down. It was sort of like, more like this. So there were some days where it felt like, oh my goodness, this isn't working. Well, the little voice in my head could say that, but I would come back and say, but I've seen evidence that it has been working.
Oh,
And so let's focus on that. Now, if this particular thing didn't work, try something else. But because I'm an engineer, Wayne, I love like graphs and charts.
yeah.
So of course, I charted everything and graphed everything and kept records and data. And so I could see, I guess, and that's sometimes I show that to my clients as well. I'll say, look, and say you've had a, 36% improvement since we started. And they're like, what? Is it that much? Because people forget as you start getting better, you forget how bad you were. So it's really great to have a record so you can see it. And it gives you faith that, you are on the right path, you are going in the right direction, and gives you the belief that you can keep on going, the belief in yourself. And it's very empowering.
That's so great. I'm making some notes because this is awesome, right? I want to talk about, um, people do forget how bad things were, and it's what keeps people in some ways. It's part of what keeps people in a bad relationship. Um, it's part of what keeps people uh, in a toxic state, where for themselves, where they will self-medicate. It's like, well, Tylenol works, or ibuprofen works, or right, some other analgesic, or alcohol works, right? So it's like, well, it just covers the pain. It's fine. It's going to be fine. I'm doing good today, right? doing
Mhm.
well today. And it really is about getting beyond that,
Mhm.
and measurement helps you, being able to track your progress. That's huge. That's huge. Recognizing that it's like any rehabilitation really is recognizing that you have certain limitations. For example, I had wrist surgery, right? After wrist surgery, this was almost a year ago. After wrist surgery, I couldn't even lift a dish with my left hand. Now I'm flipping omelets with my left hand. Like it's
Yeah.
not a thing to lift a cast iron pan. That, you know, a year ago, I can't remember the pain. I just remember I couldn't do that thing, but I know I was in pain. And I
Yes.
think that's a huge thing, right? To
Yeah.
to be able to track and measure.
Yeah. Another huge thing too is reading and staying educated on things, because like you said, okay, for example, before I started doing research and learning, I was popping ibuprofen all the time
Hmm.
because, it took away the pain. Then once I learned, what ibuprofen does to your does to your gut, and of course, well, a lot of people don't know, but all autoimmune diseases, in fact, most chronic diseases have a gut health problem. It's linked to your gut health. And of course, if you're popping ibuprofen, you're making your gut health worse, which is worsening the situation in the long run. So it's kind of like, well, short term pain, by not taking them, and long term gain by, healing the gut. And another big thing too is mindset. And instead of having all these negative thoughts about your body, this is when you have something like this illness, you feel like your body's let you down. In fact, the terminology they use for autoimmune diseases is your immune system is attacking you. I mean, what an awful analogy, because it's not really what's happening at all. Like our immune systems get confused. So the words that you use in your head, that affects how you feel, and our cells respond to that. We are energetic beings, and our cells are energy, and it's all responding. So you have to be really, really careful with your thoughts.
Yes. Yes. I'm a big fan of what you say to yourself. You wouldn't let someone else talk to you the way you talk to you. It's like, oh, I'm such a fill in the blank, or oh, that was so stupid of me, or like, would you let someone else go, wow, you're so stupid, right? You wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that what we say to ourselves and
Yeah.
how we boost ourselves.
Yeah.
Every time, there are times that the illness hits each of us. The allergy season is on us, the cold and flu season, and certainly even now there's a thing called a pandemic. I don't know if you've heard about it, but imagine that.
What?
So right. So um when that happens, the things that I say to myself are, wow, my body is doing exactly what it needs to do in order to clear this. Right? That's the
Yes.
conversation. Let
Yeah.
me make one quick disclaimer, which is we may be talking about medical processes or recovery. This is not a medical show, nor nor is it meant to offer medical advice, right?
No.
So I'm not a physician. You're not a physician,
Nope.
right?
Or
So,
nutritionist. None of that. Nope. We're just
right?
having a conversation
Exactly. So, and
about what worked for me.
yeah, what worked for you, and
Yeah.
now you have clients that have signed up with you.
Yeah.
So talk about some of the, without giving away personal details of who they are, if you can talk about some of your successes with clients. What were some of the big bounces? Like, who came to you? What was going on with them? And what did you suggest that may or may not be something that someone listening might want to research on their own and or reach
Mm.
out to you for?
It's interesting because even though I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get all people with rheumatoid arthritis, I have had, a lot of clients with rheumatoid, but I get other clients with other autoimmune and I've got people with osteo. I've got people with gut issues because the gut health is connected so much. I get people saying like, I've got this gut problem. So a lot of different things. But Wayne, again, I love to tabulate. So I get my clients to do a medical symptoms questionnaire, which is just more like a subjective general health kind of questionnaire. I get them to do it at the beginning, at the middle, at the end. And I do most of my clients, I've worked with them on a 12-week program. So after 6 weeks on average, they have about a 70% reduction in their symptoms. And that is amazing. And like, I'm not taking the credit for it. Like, they're doing the work, of course, with some guidance. And I think having the accountability really helps as well to keep them, they're ready to make a change and do the things they need to do. But so that every time it happens, it amazes me. And they're
Mhm.
amazed too. It's just, we have so much power. We have power to, hurt our bodies, and we have power to heal our bodies. And it's amazing to me when I see that. So, that's just a general, like, overall kind of view of it. And what I like when I'm finished working, with on the program with them, they now have learned so much about themselves, and they've learned how to understand their body, because our bodies are always talking to us in different ways. They've learned how to understand their body, and they can take that with them for the
That's
rest of their lives.
that's awesome.
Mm.
How long does someone typically work with you, and what do they do? Like, what is the very first thing that they do? I'll ask this differently. What is the most typical first aha for most people?
Oh my goodness. It varies a lot because so I work with people for 12 weeks generally. And everyone comes in at different starting points. So it's hard to say, like, the starting point for one person may not be the same as a starting point for another person. I mean,
That's important.
generally, I
That's
always say,
important.
like, a lot of people just aren't drinking enough water. So, actually, I would go back even further than that. A lot of people are eating their food too quickly.
Mm,
So I mentioned that most of these things it's a gut health issue. About 80% of our immune system is in our gut. And so a lot of chronic illnesses do have a gut component. And sometimes even stress can cause, a gut component, because we have a connection between our brain and our hearts and our gut. And so I would say the very first thing, and in fact, I've got a little gift I give away on that, is slow down when you're eating. Appreciate your food while you're eating, and chew your food slowly. Be
uh,
grateful for your food. So even if it's crappy food, at least even starting with that is a great starting point. And then the next thing, is always drink more water, and then start moving towards, cutting out the inflammatory foods and moving towards more whole foods. But while all that's happening, I also get them to say, well, what's important to you? What do you want out of life? Because that's the motivator. It's got to be an intrinsic kind of motivation where people want to make a change because they've got something they want to do. And then I get them to, like, work on that, picture it, visualize it, get that picture crystal clear in your head. Because the other thing that's happening there is that we're training our brain, we're giving it a future picture of what we want, so that we can feel the feelings associated with it, and then our brain starts working to make that happen through the reticular activating system. Have you talked about that before?
I don't know if I've covered that on this. This
Oh,
is on One Sharp Sword. That's worth talking about. That the
okay, all
RAS,
right.
the RAS, the Reticular Activating System, that's huge in terms of what drives us.
Yeah.
So yeah, take it and talk, Jane. Yeah.
Okay. So our reticular activating system, so our brains, there's constant information coming into our brain all the time, and our brain can't, process all of it. So it kind of screens it out, filters it out, based on what it believes is important, and what it believes is important is the things you're thinking about all the time. So if you think about and visualize where you want to be, then your brain starts filtering out other stuff and filtering in the things that make that happen. So maybe you start making different choices. Maybe some little news article or some magazine article catches your eye. Maybe you start paying attention a bit more to reading food labels. So it just all starts working in a way to, help you achieve that goal, that picture you've been cultivating in your mind, because the brain can't tell the difference between a real image, in the real world, and an imagined image in our brain. That's
This
what.
is this is huge, and I've been taking a lot of notes as we've been talking. I want to jump in here because this is, if you think about all the imagery we've been given in the last few months, right? We've been told that we are to stay at home, shelter in place. Um, there are a bunch of different terms, and the one that I push back on is lockdown,
Yeah.
right? That we're in lockdown. We've never been in lockdown, and I don't know why that term is used. Lockdown, they're not military tanks strolling or patrolling the city streets to make sure that nobody is leaving their homes. We have been given the suggestion to social distance and to wear masks. And in terms of the reticular activating system, the imagery of masks is now associated with fear. It's not
Yeah.
associated with safety, right? So that when we see someone in a mask, we automatically think disease, right? And so our bodies are responding, and I think that's gigantic in
It
terms of
is.
what we do with how we process the images that we are given, and
Mm.
what types of images we choose to give ourselves. And I'm saying this because we are inundated with information on television, on every news feed, on, for even social feeds. LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram are filled with, right, the hold your breath, this is terrible kind of roller coaster images. And we need to be thinking in terms of, one, what are we feeding our brains? What are we feeding? And beyond our brain, that brain, I believe, is our mind, right? Which extends beyond just the brain. So
Yeah.
what are we feeding our minds? And what are we processing that as? It is neutral information until we do something with it.
So
So,
true.
yeah. So most people are processing a mask as a fear-based symbol.
Hmm.
And we need to be processing it as this is a health-based symbol until we no longer need it, which is then the sign of further health, right? So it's something to think about as we're coming out of this very strange time in our own history. It's something that I think we need to be thinking about. I used
Well,
to go ahead.
the other thing to think about as well is that our central nervous system can only be in one of two states, which is, the fight, flight, fear response, or the rest, digest, relax, rejuvenate response. And as long as we are in that fear response, it's just like, it's a toggle, right? So as long as we are in that fear response, which we are, if we're looking at all those images that are creating, a feeling of fear within us, our central nervous system can't be in the other state. So digestion doesn't work so well. The immune system shuts down because it's thinking, well, we got to deal with this immediate threat, not long-term things. So the immune system shuts down, and really, like, nobody wants those things happening. Yet I think people get caught up, and almost like just keeps feeding this fear. They need to keep seeing these images all the time, but really, if you can just interrupt your nervous system and start switching it with positive images, which then creates positive feelings, which turns on the rest, rest, digest, relax, rejuvenate response, your immune system starts working again. And, so all those, that's really what we want. It's hard to convince people of that though. And I think part of it is they just don't know.
Right. Well, that's what we're doing here. We're bringing new
Exactly.
ideas, right? New ideas for you to think about as a listener, as as you're seeing this, as you're listening to this. Think about the things that you are allowing into your consciousness, and
Hmm.
that what you get to do is to choose how you interpret anything. And I use a process. I use a process that is, you use the word interrupt. I do it deliberately.
Yeah.
When there are thoughts that enter that I don't want there, I snap my fingers, like it is a physical thing to do that stops me thinking along those lines. And then I'll say out loud these words: reset, reset. And it is a command to myself to think differently. And
I
it is,
love that.
right, it's like, because otherwise it's like, oh, I guess I'm just thinking negatively, I should really stop. And then you start in this path of downward spiral of I'm bad, stupid, wrong for thinking negatively. And it's like, no, no, even that needs the reset, reset. I'm strong to have recognized that I stopped an otherwise negative thought. I'm
I
strong, I'm powerful, right? All of that
Yeah.
together.
I was just going to say that it's powerful. It comes from a place of power rather than a place of like criticism, self-criticism, or like you said, spiraling down something negative. So I love those words: reset,
Yeah.
reset. Perfect.
Cool. Yeah, there's all kinds of new research. By the way, you were talking about the brain gut connection. There's new research that just came out even this morning as I was reading through uh, some scientific journals, which I sort of geek out about and do. And there's some research that even shows a neural connection, like the nerves are directly connected, brain to gut.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and so how we think affects how we digest, what we eat affects how we think. Amazing, amazing research.
Really interesting thing. So the neural connection is through the vagus nerve, that so it goes, all around all of our organs and up to our brain. And what they're saying is that I forget the percentage now, but there's a lot more ascending fibers than descending fibers. So that means there's a lot more signals going from the gut to the brain than the
Yeah,
brain down.
interesting. And
Really interesting.
for our listeners, you're missing Jane, who is gesturing all over her body and showing her hands going up from her gut, which is awesome. Uh, that's great. So, if someone wanted to find out more about you or find out about what you do, and if they're curious about learning about this uh, bounce back, the recovery from some kind of autoimmune stuff that's going on with them, and they know you're not a physician, but they wanted to connect with you because you've been doing this and you've got clients that you're guiding, what should they know? How can they find you?
Well,
And
it's really easy because my website is janehoganhealth.com,
you
and
got to
I'm on.
slow that down when you say when this is like for you and anybody else. It's sort of like when you say your name, you've got to, and this goes for everybody who's listening. It's not, hi, I'm Wayne Pernell, right? You want people to get it, right? So it's waynepernell.com. It's janehoganhealth.com. There you go.
Right. I
Okay,
will slow down.
there you
Thank you for
go.
that.
Yeah.
And on Facebook at Jane Hogan, Instagram at Jane Hogan, and YouTube, Jane Hogan Health. So you can
Jane
find me in all
Hogan
those
Health.
places.
Awesome.
And I actually have a gift for your audience if they would like to explore uh, using their mornings to really establish a day that can I believe, transform your life. And so they could get that if they go to janehoganhealth.com/mornings.
Okay. And this is a guide for,
It's
uh,
a transformational morning routine that I do in the mornings that incorporates a whole lot of these power practices, I call them, to really set you up for the day. And then, of course, each day is a little mini version of your life. So I believe it transforms your life.
all right. You want a stronger morning and a better life? JaneHoganHealth.com. Ah, excellent. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, or anything I forgot to ask you, or any last words as we wrap up here?
I just probably would mention that I've also got a women's health mind body medicine program, and it's called Wonderful Fine, which is it's an actually a Newfoundland expression. So I live in Newfoundland, Canada, and it means like the best version of fine. So it's a monthly membership program, and they could go to my website and learn a little bit more about that too. But I just love what I do there. I do some mindset and some, some food things as well, and helps people release pain and find peace and calm in their lives.
Nice. Okay. Thanks for joining me. The mind body connection and the big bounce back into health. This is awesome. Jane Hogan has been my guest. You are listening to One Sharp Sword. I'm Dr. Wayne Pernell. Thank you for joining us. Until next time. Jane, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Wayne. I've really, really enjoyed this.
It is a pleasure. All righty. Until next time, this is One Sharp Sword. I'm Dr. P. Keep making your magic.